My wife Willow bought 999 roses for our wedding anniversary, and I immediately decided to divorce her. She never imagined that the reason would be so simple. The florist gave her one rose short. From their chat history, I realized she was emotionally cheating. When I confronted her, she insisted she had cut ties with him, yet behind my back, she kept flirting with him like nothing had changed. But she forgot one thing. What I hate most is betrayal. And I didn't build the top law firm in the entire city in just a few years by being soft-hearted. Chapter 1. Every wedding anniversary, Willow would bring home 999 roses. That day, my 4-year-old niece came over to play. She was absolutely fascinated by the bouquet of roses. Suddenly, she ran over and tugged at my sleeve, asking, "Uncle, there are 998 flowers in total, right?" Her words made me pause for a moment. Then I smiled, reached out to pat her hair, and said, "That's not right, Emma. You must have miscounted. There are 999 roses." Emma pouted. "No, there's not. It's definitely 998. Seeing how certain she looked, I knew you shouldn't just flatly deny a child's words. You need evidence to convince them. So I smiled and said, "How about this? Uncle will count them with you again, and we'll see who's right, okay?" Emma nodded. 20 minutes later, I stared at the 998 roses spread across the floor, a little stunned. How could there be one missing? Emma clapped her hands happily. Uncle was wrong. Snapping out of it, I forced a smile. "You're right, Emma. As a reward, how about I treat you to an egg tart?" Emma nodded eagerly, like a little chick pecking rice. By evening, my older brother came to pick Emma up. At the door, holding his sleeping daughter in his arms, he suddenly looked at me and asked, "George, is something bothering you?" I paused for a moment, then shook my head. He didn't press further. Just told me if anything came up, I should tell him. Once the door closed, the house was silent. The golden light of sunset spilled across the floor through the window. But I had no interest in admiring it. I just sat on the couch, staring blankly. It was just one rose missing. Maybe a careless florist had forgotten to add one while wrapping. And yet, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Night had completely fallen. Willow finally came home. The lights were off in the house. She called my name, then flicked the switch. The lights came on. Seeing me sitting on the couch, Willow asked curiously, "Honey, why are you sitting in the dark?" Before I could answer, she noticed the roses scattered on the floor. A look of surprise appeared on her face. "Why did you unwrap them?" I stood up and took her coat, replying, "Emma did. She wanted to count how many flowers there were." Willow froze. I continued. Strangely enough, there were only 998. One's missing. Willow lowered her head to take off her heels. I couldn't see her expression. A few seconds later, she looked up and replied casually, "Probably a mistake at the flower shop. I'll buy another one tomorrow to make up for it." Then she kissed me on the forehead and turned toward the bathroom to take a shower. I stood frozen in place. Willow carried a scent on her, but it wasn't her usual perfume. It was a rich mixed fragrance of different flowers, natural and unmistakable. My chest tightened. A moment later, I took Willow's phone from the pocket of her coat. We'd been married 5 years, and I had never once checked her phone because I always believed if a marriage lacked even the most basic trust, then it wasn't worth continuing. But this time was different. I knew myself too well. If this doubt wasn't resolved, it would become a crack in our relationship that could never be repaired. Willow's phone password was my birthday. It had never been changed. I opened WeChat and quickly found the contact she used to order the bouquet. The contact was a man. His nickname was Makoto. His profile picture was a hand-drawn sunflower. I opened their chat window. The conversation was clean, just messages about flower orders, questions and answers. Nothing flirtatious. I scrolled further up. Then my fingers froze. Willow had been ordering flowers from him for the past 3 years. That in itself wasn't a problem because Willow was the type who stuck to what she was used to. Once she got used to something, she rarely changed it. But she had kept their entire chat history for 3 whole years. Willow had a little quirk. She had the habit of deleting chat threads as a reflex. Because of this habit, she once lost an important file and nearly ruined a project. After that incident, she tried to change. But even now, most of her chat windows wouldn't last more than a week, except for mine. From the time we were dating through our marriage, Willow had saved every single message between us. Even when she changed phones, she'd double and triple check the backup just to make sure everything was preserved. And now, there was a second exception. My fingers trembled slightly. Sometimes a man's intuition is terrifyingly accurate. I took a deep breath and tapped into Makoto's moments on WeChat. Amid a flood of generic flower shop ads, one post stood out. It was a photo of a slender, bony hand holding a single rose. The caption beside it read, "The small bit of sincerity you gave me is already incredibly precious." The post date was exactly on my and Willow's wedding anniversary. Willow didn't reply, but she gave it a like. That instant, it felt like I had fallen into a freezing lake. I don't know how much time passed. Willow came out of the shower, towel drying her hair as she walked over to me. She was slightly stunned when she saw me holding her phone, but she quickly joked, "Honey, you're finally interested in checking my phone." I turned to look at her. There wasn't the slightest hint of guilt on Willow's face, only teasing amusement at my reaction. It made me second-guess myself, almost convinced I was just overthinking things. I steadied my emotions, refusing to spiral into suspicion and anxiety. Raising her phone, I showed Willow the WeChat post from Makoto. One rose was missing, and this post was published on our wedding anniversary. "Willow, I need an explanation." Willow looked surprised. "That's just a coincidence, isn't it?" I looked her in the eyes and said, "You liked the post, and you kept your entire 3-year chat history with him." Willow fell silent. After a moment, she sat beside me, held my hand, and sighed. "Honey, it's not what you think. I kept the chat records to verify the orders. One time I ordered from them, they made a mistake and denied it. That's why I saved the conversation as proof. As for the like, it was just a random click, nothing more." I didn't respond. It sounded reasonable at first, but I knew Willow too well. She had zero tolerance for people who were sloppy or unprofessional. Even her personal assistant was reassigned after making a single careless mistake. If Willow broke that principle, it could only mean this person held a special place in her heart. Seeing I stayed silent, Willow frowned. "Honey, do you not even trust me that much?" I looked at her and spoke softly. "If that's the case, then delete him. You can use another flower shop from now on, right?" Willow's face changed. "You really don't believe me, do you?" I didn't speak. I just stared at her insistently. Her expression shifted. Finally, she stood up abruptly and said coldly, like throwing a tantrum, "Do whatever you want." I nodded and deleted Makoto from her WeChat right in front of her. Willow's expression grew even uglier. She snapped, "Happy now?" I didn't answer. Willow yanked her phone back and stormed into the bedroom, slamming the door behind her. I collapsed onto the couch, only then realizing how violently my fingers were trembling. I stared at the tightly shut bedroom door and let out a bitter laugh. Was she angry because I didn't trust her, or because I had struck a nerve and she felt exposed? In the days that followed, Willow and I entered a cold war. She didn't try to make peace like she usually would, and I didn't push her any more about Makoto. Deep down, I knew Willow probably hadn't crossed any lines physically with him. But she had absolutely blurred the boundaries of appropriate interaction between a man and a woman. On the 10th day of our silent standoff, I came home from work. Willow was in the kitchen wearing an apron and cooking dinner. When she heard the door, she turned to look at me and smiled, like the Cold War of the past few days had never even happened. "Go wash your hands. Dinner's ready." I paused for a moment, then turned toward the bathroom. As I passed the dining table, I stopped mid-step. A bouquet of flowers sat there. The brand card from a different flower shop dangled clearly and obviously, like it was meant to be seen. It wasn't from Makoto's shop. I understood immediately. Willow was offering an olive branch. I stood there for a while, then walked over and placed the flowers into a vase. When I came out of the bathroom, dinner was already set on the table. I looked at the spread, momentarily dazed. It had been years since Willow last cooked. Back when she was just starting her business, she'd poured every cent we had into her startup. For a time, we were so strapped for cash that we wouldn't even cook 2 packs of instant noodles. We'd mix in some plain noodles to stretch it. Willow would pick out all the instant noodles and put them in my bowl. At the time, I was deeply moved. Now looking back, it's both a little sad and a little funny. Later, Willow's business succeeded. We had tasted every luxury, every fine dish. We no longer had to press our foreheads together over a tiny table slurping shared noodles. But sometimes I still miss the past. Not the hardship, but the way we loved each other so passionately back then. Now Willow and I were walking different paths in our careers. We shone in our own fields, but we had less and less to talk about. Maybe neither of us realized. The moment communication began to dwindle, cracks had already formed in our marriage. The Cold War between Willow and me ended tacitly after that meal. But that didn't mean I had forgiven her. In the adult world, sometimes you have to turn a blind eye. She was my wife. There had been no actual cheating. So what could I really do? If I were still 20, I would have slapped Willow across the face and told her goodbye. But now I was 29. The law firm I co-founded with a friend was still in its early stages. Partnering with Willow's company helped us maximize our interests. So, as long as Willow didn't cross my bottom line, I wouldn't tear things apart. To numb myself, and to get past this incident faster, I buried myself in work for an entire month without pause. One day, while helping a client sort through their case, a sudden sharp pain twisted in my abdomen. I rushed to the restroom and vomited, even spitting up blood. A wave of dread surged inside me. At the hospital, thankfully, it wasn't anything life-threatening like cancer, just acute gastritis, caused by a month of stress, irregular sleep, and poor eating habits. Sitting on a bench, I looked at the report in my hands, feeling all kinds of emotions. All those years as a lawyer, and I'd never fallen ill. But just 1 month of internal turmoil, and here I was. After a long silence, I crumpled the report in my hand, took a deep breath, and stood up. Dwelling on pain alone wouldn't help. Sometimes you have to cut clean to stop the rot. I walked out of the hospital and drove straight to the office. The young receptionist recognized me and greeted cheerfully, "Sir." I nodded, but my gaze caught something near the wall, and I froze. There was a long table with a box of individually wrapped roses on top. The receptionist, always quick to read the room, noticed where I was looking. She explained with a smile, "Tomorrow's Valentine's Day. President Liu ordered flowers for everyone in the company. People can pick one up when they pass the front desk." I didn't react. My eyes were locked on the sunflower pattern printed on the side of the box. After a long pause, I finally looked away and asked in a hoarse voice, "Do they do this every year?" The receptionist thought for a moment. "It started 3 years ago, I think." My heart felt like it had just taken a hammer blow, thudding violently. A bitter, indescribable ache swelled in my chest. I forced a smile and took the elevator upstairs. Outside Willow's office, just as I was about to knock, the door opened from inside. A young, handsome guy walked out, beaming with a smile, but the moment he saw me, his expression froze. We stared at each other. Neither of us said a word, but we both knew who the other was. Willow sensed the tension. When she saw me, her expression changed instantly. She instinctively stepped forward, placing herself between Makoto and me. "Honey, it's not what you think," she said quickly. "He just came to deliver flowers. The Valentine's Day bouquet was ordered a long time ago, and it couldn't be canceled." I raised a hand and cut her off. "Willow, stop making excuses. It just makes you look ridiculous." Her face darkened, like she'd been insulted. Before she could say anything else, Makoto suddenly stepped forward, looking at me defiantly. "Mr. Wong, that's really uncalled for. There's nothing indecent going on between me and Miss Liu." He bit his lip, then turned to Willow with a look full of emotion. "I've had a one-sided crush on Miss Liu, but she's never responded to my feelings. She only has eyes for you." Miss Liu is an amazing woman. You should cherish her. I looked at him calmly and asked, "Do you know what I do for a living?" Makoto blinked, confused. I continued, "I'm a lawyer. I've seen more courtroom performances than I can count. Tearful confessions, emotional breakdowns, enough to move an entire jury. Compared to that, your little act is second-rate at best. Only blind, deaf fools would believe you." Makoto's face flushed deep red. Tears welled in his eyes. Willow had just been scolded by me, and now seeing Makoto's wounded expression, her face turned pale, then angry. She said coldly, "You've gone too far." I let out a soft laugh. "Can't take it already, Willow? I'm a lawyer. If you think that was harsh, you haven't even heard the real sharp stuff. Want me to keep going?" Willow rubbed her temples, visibly irritated. "Honey, what do you want from me?" Forcing my trembling voice to stay steady, I said, "Willow, I'm giving you one choice. Either he disappears from this city, or I do." I pointed at Makoto. Willow frowned, then let out a long, tired sigh. "Honey, can we not do this?" I closed my eyes. For a moment, the rage clouding my mind lifted and clarity returned. Hoping for loyalty from someone whose heart had already left this marriage was my own stupidity. I took a deep breath, opened my eyes again, and gave a faint, bitter smile. "All right, I understand now. Willow, let's get a divorce." Willow's pupils shrank, but she was a seasoned businesswoman, and that flicker of panic quickly disappeared beneath her composure. She frowned. "Honey, don't be so impulsive. Some things shouldn't be said so lightly." My eyes stayed calm. "Willow, I'll draft the divorce agreement and send it to you." With that, I turned and walked away. I heard footsteps behind me, but they quickly stopped. Right before the elevator doors closed, I heard Makoto trying to comfort her, all considerate and understanding. "Miss Liu, Mr. Wong's just saying things out of anger. Give him some time to cool off. I'm sure he'll come around soon. After all, he loves you. And his law firm still needs your support. He won't really leave you." I clenched my fist. My chest tightened. I couldn't help but sneer. Willow really did find herself a perfect little emotional interpreter, telling him everything. But Makoto was wrong. Yes, I loved Willow, but I loved myself more. A woman who'd been tainted wasn't worth my hesitation or attachment. As for the firm, Willow was never my foundation. And I'd never entrust everything I had to anyone but myself. When I got home, I called a moving company right away. Everything that belonged to me was packed and sent to a private apartment I'd bought a few years ago. By the time Willow got back that night and found the place empty, she called me. I was already sitting at my desk drafting the divorce agreement. "Honey, you moved out?" I didn't want to waste time on pointless talk. Flatly, I said, "Our marital assets are too intertwined. Dividing them won't be easy. I'll send you the agreement in a week." Willow said nothing, but her breathing quickened, like she was furious. After a long pause, she let out a cold laugh. "So what, George? You've already convicted me of cheating. No matter how I explain it, you see it as lies, don't you?" I remained silent. That only made her angrier, her voice tight with suppressed rage. "Fine. Since you're so sure I cheated, I won't just take the blame for nothing. I'll prove you right." The pen in my hand paused. Underneath Willow's ice-cold CEO image was a childish streak. But she only ever showed that side to me. Once, I loved her for that uniqueness.
Now, it just annoyed me.
"Willow, I suggest you don't do that. Because if I get concrete proof, I'll have absolute leverage when it comes to splitting our assets." Her breath hitched. After a moment, she gritted her teeth and said, "George, you're so damn cold. Do you even have a heart?" She hung up. I stared at the computer screen until my eyes started to ache, and I leaned back in the chair. I thought of my childhood. Back then, I once had parents who truly loved each other. But then my father cheated. And my mother, soft-hearted and indecisive, kept forgiving him. In the end, she was framed by my father, caught in a trap and thrown out of the house with nothing but me. My older brother was left behind, tormented by the mistress. From then on, my childhood was filled with dampness and the stench of mold. I also came to understand something. In life, it's not a mistake to take the wrong path. But once you realize it's wrong, you must cut your losses in time. So even if the pain feels suffocating right now, I have to plan for my own best interests. The very next morning, I went to the hospital for a full checkup. I was determined to take care of my health. In the days that followed, I stayed home to rest. Willow didn't reach out to me. Instead, she posted tons of WeChat moments from her trip with Makoto, walking hand in hand by the sea. Nestled close beneath a sea of clouds, they even went to the island Willow, and I once dreamed of visiting for our honeymoon but never made it due to an accident. The photos were beautifully taken, and under each post were countless likes and envious comments. Lu Jia and her husband are so in love. Still this romantic after so many years of marriage. What a dream couple. Truly made for each other. In every photo Willow posted, Makoto never showed his face. So, everyone naturally assumed the man beside her was me. I took screenshots of each and every one. If evidence of emotional cheating comes delivered straight to your door, you don't turn it away. When I was done, I gave Willow's post a like too. Then I left a comment beneath it. Thanks for the tag. Been swamped with cases lately, no time for a trip. But President Liu and her new boyfriend look perfect together. Wishing you a lifetime of happiness. The lively discussion ended abruptly. I calmly locked my phone. Moments later, Willow called. I declined the first call, but she kept blowing up my phone over and over. Frustrated, I finally picked up, only to hear her furious voice explode through the speaker. George, have you lost your mind? I moved the phone slightly away from my ear. I was just stating facts. You're clearly being ambiguous with another man. The photos speak for themselves, am I wrong? Willow had no retort. After a while, she spoke hoarsely. George, I was doing it to provoke you. Couldn't you tell? I could. So what? I let out a cold laugh. Were you hoping I'd be touched? Or maybe you thought I'd cave in because I still love you. You're unbelievably arrogant and selfish, Willow. She fell silent. I took a deep breath and calmed my voice. The divorce agreement is already signed. I'll have it mailed to your home directly. Before she could say another word, I ended the call. Chapter 5. 3 days later, I was in a meeting at the law firm. Suddenly, the conference room door was slammed open. My assistant came in with an awkward expression. Boss. I couldn't stop President Liu. I looked toward the door. There stood Willow. Her eyes were bloodshot, and she was breathing heavily. I felt a wave of frustration surge up inside me, but I forced myself to stay calm and told everyone else to step out. Soon, it was just me and Willow in the room. My face instantly went cold. Before I could say anything, Willow rushed into my arms, eyes filled with concern. Honey, are you sick? I was slightly stunned. I had no idea how she found out. Willow quickly answered the question. She pulled out the divorce agreement, flipped to one of the pages, and said bitterly, You slipped your medical report in here when you mailed it to me, didn't you? You're trying to change your mind, right? You wanted to give us another chance. Honey, I know you've been sick because I've neglected you. I promise, I'll make Makoto leave us alone. I'll be a good wife, I swear. I said nothing and pushed her away. Willow froze, her face showing panic at my cold expression. Before she could speak again, I snatched the medical report from her hand, tore it up, and threw it in the trash. Willow, if you're hallucinating, go see a doctor. And for the record, my gastritis was triggered by you and your boy toy. Willow looked at me in disbelief. After a long silence, she asked in a trembling voice, Why? I didn't answer. She grabbed my shoulder, eyes filled with tears. George, if you were angry, why didn't you just tell me? I shook off her hand hard. You think you deserve to ask that? For the first time, I let my resentment show, teeth clenched. Willow, the one thing I hate most is betrayal. Willow froze in place, her expression twisted in regret and guilt. She knew my family background. She knew how deeply I loathed cheaters. And still, she chose to cross the line anyway. Willow reached for my hand, voice full of remorse. Honey, I'm sorry, but I didn't let her finish. I called security in to escort her out. Get out, I yelled. Willow disappeared. I went to her company to look for her, but she was nowhere to be found. Instead, all kinds of supplements started arriving at my home like a steady stream. I gave them all to neighbors and coworkers. After 2 or 3 deliveries, the gift stopped. I figured Willow was deliberately avoiding me,
So I stopped wasting time.
I had my assistant notify her. If she didn't sign the divorce papers within a week, I would immediately take legal action. And when it came to that, it wouldn't just be about divorce. Even her company's image would take a hit. 1 week later, Willow showed up at my apartment right at the deadline. She was carrying bags full of things. I acted like I didn't see her and went straight inside. She followed me in and put everything in the kitchen like it was her own home. Then she opened the fridge completely at ease and frowned as she scolded me. Honey, with your stomach issues, how can you live off takeout like this? I bought black bone chicken. I'll make a soup for you later. As the fridge door closed, Willow tilted her head and saw me standing there holding the divorce agreement. The atmosphere instantly turned still and heavy. I was the first to speak. Takeout chicken soup tastes just as good, and it's just as nourishing. Willow opened her mouth trying to say something, but I didn't give her the chance. What I mean is, you're not irreplaceable anymore.
I don't need you now.
So it's time for you to step off the stage. All these years we'd been together, every time she upset me and wanted to make up, Willow would cook a meal. And I would take the opportunity to forgive her and let things slide. But all of that was based on one condition. I loved her. Now I didn't anymore. So even if she used the same tricks, they had no effect. Willow clearly realized that too. Her face slowly turned pale. I handed her the divorce agreement. Sign it. Be mature. This is the best decision for both of us. After a long moment, Willow took the document with trembling fingers. She picked up the pen and slowly began to write her name. Suddenly, her hand paused. In the next second, she threw herself into my arms, clinging tightly around my neck as if trying to melt into me. I felt something damp on my shoulder. I froze. Willow was crying. Honey, please give me one more chance, okay? I'll tell you everything.
I swear.
But there really isn't anything going on with Makoto. I was just venting to him. That's all. Nothing else happened, I swear. Please believe me. I was silent for a moment, then asked calmly, Then why didn't you talk to me? Willow's body stiffened. I went on, voice cold, because I don't give you the emotional validation you want. I've always disagreed with your aggressive growth strategies for the company. You think I'm too cautious, too conservative.
So you stopped talking to me.
You wanted someone like Makoto, someone who would sweet-talk you and agree with everything you say. A warm, gentle guy who'd make you feel good. Isn't that right? Willow looked at me like she couldn't understand how I knew all this. I gave a bitter, mocking smile. Willow, I know you better than you know yourself. Her face turned completely white. She couldn't utter a single word. I gently took her hand and carefully signed the rest of my name stroke by stroke. 1 month later, Willow and I were officially divorced. Outside the Civil Affairs Bureau, I put the divorce certificate into my bag and turned to get in the car. Willow called out to me. George, I've already made Makoto leave the city. I won't see him again. I nodded calmly. That's your business. You don't need to tell me. Her eyes flickered with hurt. I buckled my seatbelt, ready to drive away. But Willow rushed forward and gripped the window with both hands, her voice urgent. George, the company's facing a financial dispute. You'll help me, right? I paused. With hope in her eyes, she looked at me expectantly, but I remembered something and replied, Almost forgot to mention. My law firm's partnership with your company ends next month. So I'm afraid I can't help. Her expression turned ashen in an instant. I started the engine. Still, Willow clung to the window tightly, refusing to let go. But I didn't waver. I stepped hard on the gas and sped off. Willow stumbled forward, dragged by the momentum, almost falling to her knees on the pavement. In the days that followed, I cut ties with Willow's company as quickly as possible. I also relocated the law firm. Our original office space was just one floor inside Willow's company building, too cramped and narrow for our growing team. But because of Willow, I never made the final decision to move. Now the timing was perfect. The new office was in the city center, spacious, bright, and full of potential. Standing before the floor-to-ceiling windows looking out over the vast city below, it felt like I was an emperor surveying the kingdom I'd built with my own hands. A long-lost sense of satisfaction filled my chest. Suddenly, someone knocked on the office door. My secretary came in, face dark. She said a man was making a scene downstairs, accusing the firm of being unethical, deceptive, and completely lacking professional integrity. My face turned cold. I followed her downstairs, and, to my surprise, it was Makoto. Gone was the clean-cut, charming young man from before. Now he looked disheveled and grimy. The moment he saw me, Makoto's eyes turned red, and he lunged forward. "George, this is all your fault." He was stopped by the security guards before he could touch me. Struggling against them, he shouted, "This man, he couldn't keep his wife's heart, so he destroyed my flower shop and drove me out of the city. How can someone like him even call himself a lawyer?" People nearby started whispering. Rage surged inside me. Truth didn't matter. Rumors killed. Just a few sentences from Makoto, and he could ruin the reputation of my entire firm. I clenched my fists. While calling the police, I also phoned Willow. At the police station, Makoto and I sat across from each other. He kept trying to provoke me with sarcasm, but the officers sternly told him to shut up every time. I checked the time impatiently. Half an hour later, Willow walked in. Makoto's eyes lit up the moment he saw her. But before he could speak, Willow strode forward and slapped him hard across the face, her expression like thunder. "Did I not tell you to disappear? Where did you get the nerve to harass my husband?" Makoto clutched his face, stunned. You hit me." Willow was held back by the police, but her gaze was cold as ice. Makoto met her eyes and couldn't stop the tears from falling. "You weren't like this before. You were so good to me. You helped me grow my shop, introduced me to clients. We talked about everything. You even said I was the one who understood you best." Willow's face turned ugly. "Shut up." Then she cautiously looked toward me. "George, I'm sorry. I didn't think he'd come after you. I ignored her. She created this mess. Let her clean it up. It had nothing to do with me." I signed the police record and stood up to leave. As I got in the car, I saw Willow chase out after me through the rearview mirror. But I didn't stop. I drove away without hesitation. For a long time after, Willow didn't appear again. But because Willow and I shared so many similar WeChat posts, her news still managed to find its way back to me. For example, Makoto had completely latched onto her. He showed up at her office every day, demanding a relationship. The news of Willow's affair and divorce spread quickly. The family-oriented strong woman persona she had built collapsed, and her image was severely damaged. This led to a sharp drop in her company's stock prices. Willow was miserable, but I wasn't particularly surprised. Perhaps it was an instinct between us. The moment I saw Makoto, I could tell he wasn't the sunny, harmless guy he appeared to be. He had his own agenda. But Willow, she had always been proud. She had never really cared for Makoto. To her, he was just a diversion, an emotional outlet she could toss aside when she was done. But reality didn't follow her plans. Willow probably never imagined that she'd fall for someone she'd always dismissed. This was her own doing. I just saw it as a joke and didn't let it bother me. The next time I heard Willow's name was 6 months later. Our firm received a lawsuit regarding a malicious bidding case. The defendant, Willow. I flipped through the files. A moment later, I looked up at the woman across from me and asked, "Why come to me?" Sophia smiled. 2 reasons. The first is because I trust your ability. The second is simply that I don't like Willow. I want to use you to get back at her. Sophia's logic made sense. She and Willow had been rivals since college, always competing until now. She rested her chin in her hand and asked, "So, Wang, what do you think?" I didn't respond. Sophia deliberately provoked me. "You're not holding back because you still have feelings for her, are you?" I smiled. "Don't question my professionalism. You should know my fees aren't cheap." Sophia said, "I'm not lacking money." And Sophia came to an agreement. Taking the case wasn't about revenge on Willow or to cause her trouble. It was for the firm. Partnering with Sophia's company would bring in a hefty consulting fee every year. I wasn't going to turn down money. Sophia had deliberately kept the fact that I was her company's attorney a secret. When I showed up in court, Willow was visibly shocked. Throughout the entire trial, she kept staring at me, her face utterly defeated. Willow lost the case. She now faced huge fines and compensation, and the remaining shareholders in her company were dissatisfied. Her position was on shaky ground. After the trial, Willow rushed to catch up with me, grabbing my wrist. Her eyes were red and she asked, "George, do you hate me this much? Are you really going to help Sophia get back at me?" I shook off her hand, my expression cold. "Willow, watch your tone. I'm Sophia's lawyer. Helping her is my duty. Stop using your childish and shallow thinking to judge me." Willow's face shifted. She opened her mouth, but before she could say anything, Sophia casually walked up beside me. Her hand gently rested on my arm, feigning confusion. "Is there something wrong, President Liu? Are you trying to poach my lawyer?" As she finished speaking, she widened her eyes in mock surprise. "Oh, I just remembered. For you, President Liu, it's not about poaching someone else's man. It's more like going for leftovers." What a pity, though. Someone as handsome and talented as Lawyer Wang. It's so hard to find someone like him. Why doesn't President Liu appreciate him? Maybe you have a thing for scheming green tea types. Sophia's words hit their mark, each one aimed straight at Willow's heart. Willow's face turned pale with rage. Sophia then turned to me, asking if she was right. I didn't nod, nor did I argue. Willow's expression was wounded as she looked at me. Sophia checked her watch and provocatively said, "Well, President Liu, I'll leave you to your business. Lawyer Wang and I are leaving now." With that, she took my arm and walked away. Willow hurried a few steps after us, but then, defeated, she stopped. As we rounded the corner, I removed Sophia's hand from my arm. Sophia, who had been glancing at Willow's disheartened figure in satisfaction, noticed my action. Her smile faltered. She pulled her hand back and said, "Is Lawyer Wang upset?" I replied indifferently, "This is the last time. You and Willow can do whatever you want, but don't use me as a tool." Sophia shrugged. I got into the car. Sophia unabashedly slid into the car beside me, asking me to give her a ride. I started the engine reluctantly. Throughout the drive, Sophia tried to make conversation. I responded with short, disinterested replies. Suddenly, Sophia looked at me with a playful smile and said, "Lawyer Wang, how about we team up and take down Willow, that nasty woman? What do you think?" I couldn't help but glance at her. We were all adults here. There was nothing hard to understand. But I wasn't narcissistic enough to think that Sophia genuinely liked me. She was just trying to use me to annoy Willow. But I had no interest in getting involved with Willow anymore. I said calmly, "If Miss Sophia keeps joking around, our collaboration can end here." Sophia's smile faded. Her eyes deepened. "What if I wasn't joking? Then you can get out of the car right now." Sophia fell silent for a moment, then playfully blinked her eyes. "You're ruthless, Lawyer Wang. This is the highway." My mind was as calm as still water. If I wasn't ruthless, we wouldn't have come to this point. Sophia opened her mouth to say something, but then closed it again. As she was about to get out of the car, she suddenly turned around and looked at me, smiling. "Lawyer Wang, I really admire you. I've admired you for a long time." I was momentarily stunned. I had an inkling. Sophia, Willow, and I all attended the same university. When Sophia said a long time ago, she must have been talking about college, right? I shook my head and drove off. I'd lived 29 years, and I only had one relationship with Willow. Who would have thought that after our divorce, an unexpected old flame from the past would resurface? Willow didn't accept the verdict. She appealed the case again. But in the end, the original judgment stood. Soon after, Willow was accused of leaking company secrets and was removed from her position. After an investigation, it turned out that Makoto was the real culprit. Because Willow had never returned his feelings, he had finally come to believe that she never cared about him. From love, he grew to hate, seeking to drag Willow down with him. In the end, he destroyed both her and himself. He was sent to prison. Although the truth was uncovered, Willow didn't get her position back because everything that happened was caused by her own actions. When Sophia relayed the news to me, she gleefully slapped her thigh and laughed. Serves her right.
I didn't respond.
After Sophia stopped laughing, she said, "To celebrate, how about I take you out to dinner?" I declined. "I've got something to do." Sophia sighed, about to say something when suddenly the sound of an airport announcement came from her phone. She froze. Before she could speak, I hung up the phone, grabbed my suitcase, and walked toward the boarding gate. I had taken on a case commissioned by an overseas Chinese client. I was ready to broaden my horizons. As for Sophia, I wasn't planning to respond to her anymore. After all, it didn't matter whether it was a man or a woman. Emotions were just the seasoning of life. Career was the true priority.